If you look at the history of the last 40 years, each decade the regime has continued to lose a different segment of society. I've looked at various polls that have been done, and when they are asked the question of who do you blame for Iran's economy, when Rouhani came into office, inflation was at 39%. While we were still in the Iran deal, inflation was in the high 30s. He had not moved that. Inflation now is probably near 50%. But there was a poll, and they said that 2/3 of the Iranian people blamed Rouhani for not delivering on his economic promises in 2013. The Iranian people have a 40-year history of this regime, and they understand how the regime enriches the elite, prioritizes ideology over the welfare of its own people, and doesn't invest in its own people. And so when you look at after the Iran deal and the sanctions relief were granted, you had people who were asking, why did this money go to Damascus and not to Tehran? Why did the money go to fund all of these proxies and not go into managing our water resources, which has been a catastrophe? There's a number of questions that we've seen the Iranian people, and it's the same questions that we are asking, that we would like to see Iran pull back to its own borders and start behaving more like a normal nation and less like a revolutionary cause. And I think that the Iranian people understand where to squarely put the blame on their economic troubles. Their standard of living has barely moved in 40 years. That is not because of American sanctions.
So there's two.
Can I also say one more thing?
Yeah.
Our sanctions regime makes exceptions for food, medicine, medical devices, and agricultural products.
You know that's a lie. You know
The
How is the money supposed to get there if that's essentially?
I-
Can you just elaborate on that? Because that seems to be one of the things that manufacturers of medicine in Iran say, that they just can't do these financial transactions for medicine.
Right, happy to answer that. The Iranian regime does not comply with international financial standards. FATF standards, the Iranian regime does not follow them. There is no financial transparency in Iran's system, because if you followed the money, you would see that it goes to terror finance and money laundering. And so a few months ago, FATF had to put in countermeasures because Iran failed to comply with transparency measures. The reason why medical supplies do not find their way to the Iranian people is because the Iranian regime is not getting them to its own people. And you can Google this. President Rouhani's chief of staff sent a letter to the cabinet asking why did 1 billion euros in medical supplies disappear? They can't account for it. 100 billion euros. 1 billion euros in medical supplies they can't account for. And there's a number of examples that I've detailed in the past.